Welcome to the Beauty in Burnt Toast, the podcast where we celebrate the crispy, chaotic, unexpectedly beautiful parts of life. I'm Jade.
And I'm Jamie. We're two women doing our best to live with purpose, laugh through the mess, and talk about the stuff that no one puts on Instagram.
Here you'll find real stories, unfiltered conversations, and reminders that perfection is overrated, but showing up, that matters.
And whether you're building a business, raising humans, chasing healing, or just trying to remember what day it is, you belong here.
So pour the coffee, reheat the toast, and let's get into it. This is the Beauty in Burnt Toast. Welcome back to another episode of the Beauty in Burnt Toast. On today's episode, we have with us Clarissa Curbow. We're talking about hitting rock bottom. So this episode is called From Rock Bottom to Solid Ground. And Clarissa knows from her journey firsthand, her life once spiraled into addiction and led her behind prison walls and left her feeling completely broken, but that wasn't the end of her story. God met her in the middle of her mess and turned ashes into beauty. And today, Clarissa is living proof that no one is too far gone for redemption. She now serves in jail ministry, speaking hope to women who are sitting where she once sat and reminding them that chains don't get the final say, but God does. Mm-hmm. This conversation is going to be real, and I just wanted to sit down and share her story with you guys. I feel like it is such a good story. We got the chance to have coffee a few weeks ago, and when I first felt like I was being led to start this podcast, I felt like I just got a download of names, and yours was one of those names. I never really knew your story, but I knew you had a good one.
It's a lot.
So I feel like it's one that people need to know.
Yeah.
So why don't you just start from the beginning? I mean, not birth.
Yeah, no,
like,
obviously not. No. Yeah, so like essentially, and the only reason why I will vocalize about the trauma that happened, mostly because a lot of the times with addiction, very rarely is it like somebody just for no reason at all decided to pick up some drug or some substance and then got hooked on it. It's normally always an underlying something that caused it. So for me, it was I was molested at a very young age for years by somebody very close to me in my family. So that was hard. I didn't know how to navigate that, and so that kind of carried into depression into my adolescence. And I moved out when I was 15 years old. I moved in with a boy, which was not good.
So you really didn't have anyone to talk to about that. You just kind of pushed it down.
Yeah, because my mother wasn't the same person then that she is now. She didn't know the Lord, so she didn't really know how to handle that situation. So it was really just kind of me against my trauma. And that's never good. So, and I was raised in church. You know, I grew up in a Baptist church, and so I had like a good foundation. I just didn't go to that. You know. So I moved out when I was 15. I got with my oldest daughter's father at that point. I stayed with him for 10 years, and my addiction really started about 9 months after Jasmine was born. I was enrolled in college. I was going to pharmacy school, and I was falling asleep studying. Sorry, my voice is driving me crazy. I was falling asleep studying for an exam, and one of his friends had come over and was like, "I've got something that'll wake you up." Well, it woke me up all right, that's for sure. So it started out as like just, like a weekend thing or a study buddy. Methamphetamine. I started smoking methamphetamine, and it definitely did wake me up, but it very quickly turned into so much more than that. Before I knew it, I had to have it. I had to have it to wake up. I had to have it to function. I had to have it to get out of bed. Like,
how long did it take before you really realized that you were addicted to it?
Like maybe 3 months.
Okay. Not long at all.
Not long at all.
Not long at all. Using every day?
Every day. Okay. Every single day. And if I didn't use, it was because I didn't have the money, and I would stay in bed.
Yeah.
It was pretty bad. Which outwardly, I don't think anybody knew. Like, I knew that I was addicted at about 3 months, but I don't think anybody else noticed for like a couple of years.
Yeah. So there were no like physical signs that you had been doing that.
Not at that point, because at that point I was still like somewhat taking care of myself. And so, like, even though I was using, I would make sure that I ate that morning before, and so that I didn't drop weight and things like that.
Yeah.
Then I got sober for a little bit. I moved back in with my mom. I separated from him because that was abusive. I stayed sober for like maybe a month and a half, and then everything got hard, and I was tired all the time, and my brain did what most of our brains do and was like, well, we know how to fix this, you know? So right back into it I went, and that's when stuff really got real. That's when I started using the needle. I was an IV meth user at that point, and that's when you could take one look at me and tell that I was on something bad.
So, like, for people who don't know and aren't around that, like, what are the signs that somebody is using?
So especially with meth, the for me, the first telltale sign is their eyes. And it can do one of two things. It'll either make your pupils huge, or it'll make them really, really tiny.
Okay.
And so I always look at people's eyes like it's just a thing now. Other than that, like, weight loss is normally a pretty common thing. So if you notice somebody that's dropping weight quick and they don't have health issues to cause it, then likely they're on something. And then outside of that, it's just like, especially with meth, most people would accumulate, what's the word I'm looking for? Pair it up with like fidgety and can't sit still, talks 90 to nothing, like all the.
So I think of like sores.
Sometimes there's that too.
How deep do you have to be to develop something like
Well,
that?
that just depends, because it affects everybody differently. And so like some people are pickers, and that's why you see people with sores,
that
so
makes
that
sense.
like they will tweak out on their face. You know, they'll see something and think it's a blackhead, and then they'll be like, and just poke at it and prod at it. For me, I twacked out on my teeth. That's why I still have my teeth. Because a lot of people will get high on meth and then forget to brush their teeth.
Yeah, that was my other thing.
And so that's why, like, meth mouth is a thing. It's a real thing. I was the reverse of that. I would get high and like hyper focus on my teeth.
Cleaning them, yeah.
Yes, like
That's
you,
good.
you never saw me without a toothbrush and
Yeah.
floss. Like, normally I had the toothbrush in my mouth.
Yeah.
Because it just felt nasty in there, and you would think that that's great, but I still have my teeth, but they're weak now. Like, I brushed the enamel completely off of my teeth, so now I have some issues. But other than that, it's pretty okay.
Yeah.
You know.
So let's kind of go back into when you had gotten deeper into using. So what happened after you said you moved back in with your mom?
Yeah, and then so once I had relapsed from that, I moved out from my mom. Now, this whole time I still got my daughter.
Yeah. And how old was she then?
She was like 2-3 years old.
Okay.
So I moved back out of my mom's house. I moved in with a friend of mine in Arab, and I just went hard in the paint, like so hard. And shooting it is a totally different demon. Like,
So this person, did they get you into that?
she didn't get me into it, but she helped feed it.
Yeah.
Like, she was also an addict, and so she was what I would call, if there is a such thing, which there's not really, a functioning addict.
Okay.
Because she still maintained her job, she still tended to her child. You know, she, outside looking in, was holding it together pretty well. I couldn't do that. I did for a little while.
Yeah.
You know, but it very quickly turned from that, because I'd gotten to the point to where if I didn't have it, I would do whatever I had to get it. And if that meant sleeping with somebody, stealing something, you know, I started selling just so that I could support my own habit. I got mixed up with some really bad, we'll say mafia style people. I don't want to disclose too much on that end, but if you could think like The Godfather is
Worst of the worst.
yeah. Like, it was pretty bad. Like, I would drive to Georgia and bury coolers and go back and dig them up and bury more, and just have like coolers of crystal meth in my trunk and driving back to Bama, like stupid. And I didn't care. Like I thought I was bulletproof,
So you were never scared in the midst of all of that?
Not really, not really. But that's the thing about meth is it makes you feel bulletproof. Like it's like
that's scary.
Yeah, it's really scary. And I can say like Jasmine was never face to face with it. She never saw me get high. She never saw me with the product. She never saw it with me. Now her father at that time, he had weekend visitation, and so I had to let her go with him. And there was a couple of times that she did walk in on him and his girlfriend at the time shooting up and things like that, which was pretty bad. But I did have her in some pretty sketchy places sometimes, like. When I would go to my dealer, she would normally be with me. She would be in the back seat.
Did she ever? How old was she then?
At that point, she was like between 3 and 5-ish.
Did she ever ask questions?
Not a lot.
Did she not realize?
I don't think she really understood. She was so young, and she just. I think. Now, when she had walked in the very first time on her father, she had some questions then. But she didn't ask me initially. She had asked him and his mother, and they just told her that he was diabetic and that he was taking his insulin. And so that's essentially what she came to me and was like, I saw Daddy taking his insulin. And I was like, oh my gosh, that is not what he was doing. I didn't tell her that, I'll just let her be naive to it. Because as a parent, like, how do you do that?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it was pretty bad. Ultimately, my mom, so it was Christmas Eve of 2016, and my mom, at that point, my mom had picked up on, she knew I was on something. She just didn't know what. She was very naive to that whole scene. Like, she didn't even know, she don't really know what drugs are. But she had picked up on it, and she had convinced me to move back in with her. And so she come pick me up, and Jasmine, and we went to her house. Well, that night, normally in my addiction, I would always make sure I had marijuana so that I could bring myself back down to sleep. And I didn't have any that night, so I got the only thing available to me, which was a Xanax. And that was a bad idea. And which I told my mom. She don't remember, but I told her. I was like, I took a Xanax to go to sleep. So, and I did, for sure, went to sleep. Well, the next morning was Christmas. And they had been trying to wake me up. Like, Jasmine woke up, I think, at like 5 o'clock that morning, like most kids do, And they was trying to wake me up, and I just wasn't waking up. So Mom, was feeling bad for Jazz, so she let her go ahead and open presents. Now, I didn't know, but she didn't let her open the presents from me. She opened her Santa presents and her presents from everybody else. But finally, I think it was like 9:30, Jasmine was able to wake me up. When she woke me up, I was like, let's open presents, and she was like, well, I already did. And then I got livid. I'm not proud of this moment, but I went like exorcist crazy. I got in my mom's face. I screamed, I hollered. I told her, I called her everything but her name. At that point, I made up my mind. I was like, I'm not gonna live here. I'm not gonna do this. If you're gonna go behind my back, I felt betrayed. And the Xanaxes make me mean. So I told her, I was like, I started packing my stuff, and she was like, what are you doing? And I was like, well, I'm leaving.
Yeah.
I'm not going to stay here. And she looked at me, and she was like, well, you can go wherever you want to, but Jasmine's not going anywhere. I looked her dead in her face, and I said, over my dead body, I'll leave without my kid. And I ate crow that day because my mom called the cops, and I'm sorry.
It's okay.
She called the cops, and they showed up, with DHR, and told me that I had to sign a safety plan or they were going to take me to jail. They had to literally pry Jasmine from my arms that day. And you would think that would be the
kicker.
Yeah. Like, okay, like this is enough. But it was not. It did the exact opposite. I left. I went back to Marshall County and just went even harder. I was doing so much stuff that I don't even want to disclose because some of it could maybe still, I don't want to.
That's okay.
But it was bad. Like it was at that point, the meth really had a hold of me. Like, I didn't see any light at the end of the tunnel, and I just lost my daughter. So for me, it translated as, well, what's the point? I don't have anything to live for now, so I'll just do what I want to do.
Yeah.
It very much so controlled me for a really long time.
Who were you living? Were you living by yourself
At
or
that
with
point,
someone else?
I had a trailer that I was renting, but I hardly ever stayed there. I was pretty much just bouncing around, like, because I didn't, which, I mean, I didn't sleep much. You know, it was not uncommon for me to stay up for days at a time, like 8 days or
can't
longer
imagine
at
what
a
that
time.
does to you.
It's horrible.
Yeah.
Like, you see things, you hear things. Like, there was a point where I was running in the woods, hiding from police that were not there. Okay. Yes. Like, that's
So
real
you're just
stuff.
imagining things.
Yeah,
Like you're
like,
tripping out.
But in the process, like, in the moment, it's like you see it.
Yeah.
It's real to you, you know. But that's where, like, you see all these videos of people, like, standing on the street talking to a light pole, and they're like into, like, that's real stuff to them. They're really talking to somebody that they physically see, but it's because you're you know, sleep deprived and outside of yourself, that it's like you're crazy. That's the only way I know to define it. So I was never in one spot for too long. Also, because paranoia is a big thing when you're on that crap. So I always thought somebody was out to get me, which sometimes people were. I've had guns held to my face. I should have died so many times. I should have died, and I didn't see it then for what it was. But, like, looking back on all of that now, I see that was God covering me and keeping me alive. This one guy, the most prominent gun issue that I remember was, it was a guy that I was dating at the time, and he was big in dealing, and he had just had like 15 pounds delivered to his house. But another friend of mine had gotten arrested, and I caught wind of it, and I wanted to call to verify if he was there or not. And so I told him, I was like, hey, I'm going to go outside and call Arab City Jail and see if they've got, you know, my friend. And he was like, okay, you know. So I did. I went out there, I called him, verified that he was there, no big deal. Come back in. Several hours later, we're in the room, and he's like, he's got 14 phones, right? And he's looking up stuff because people want to trade and stuff like that. Well, he needed another phone. So he asked me for mine, and I handed it to him. Well, he hit the recent apps button, and it pulled up my call log, because that was the last thing I did. And he knew the number for the jail by heart, and he seen that and, like, freaked out. Paranoid, freaked. Immediately pulled his gun and, like, put it to my head like this, loaded.
That even makes
shaking
me nervous.
hands. Yeah, it's just, but he did, and he was sitting there, and you know, he was, you know, screaming and hollering, and I can't believe you ratted on me, and da 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 da, and you know, I'm like, I didn't do what you think I did. Like, do you not remember me telling you what I did? Like, so ultimately, it was me and him and his other business partner and his old lady, and he threw my phone to her, and because he asked me the whole conversation that I had with the lady that answered the phone at the jail. He threw the phone to her and had her, he was like, call and ask the same questions.
Yeah.
And I want to check the duration of the call time. But there was only one slight discrepancy. When I called, I had to repeat myself because she didn't hear me the first time. When she called, the dispatch lady heard her the first time. And so it was off by like 4 seconds, I think. When she hung up the phone and he checked the duration, he immediately, like, he started shaking while he was holding the gun, like, and you could see him starting to pull the trigger. And then thankfully his friend, his business partner, stood up and was like, wait. And then he looked over at her and he looked at me and he was like, didn't you say you had to repeat yourself? And I was like, yes, I did. And he was like, she didn't have to repeat herself. That's the 4 seconds. And then he dropped the gun and, you know, tried to hug me and all this. And of course I was like,
Get off of
no,
me.
I'm not doing this with you. Like,
What did
I'm
you
leaving.
feel like in that moment? Like having a gun held to you?
Terrified.
Yeah.
I was terrified, but I knew, like, that's one of the things he said to me was, he was like, how are you so calm in that? And
Well,
I was
since
like,
you were using, did that make you?
I don't know that using made me more calm.
Okay.
It was in that moment I went back to my roots. I had kind of made peace with what was going on, and I just remember sitting there thinking in my head, like, Lord, if this is my time to go, just let him kill me, because Jasmine doesn't deserve a mom like this. And so I was kind of ready to die. And I knew that if I tried to react like, try to defend myself or something like that, I was definitely going to get shot. Yeah. So the only thing I could do was just sit there and kind of plead with the Lord and wait for my fate, And so ultimately that's what I did. It was not very long after that incident that I was arrested. I was arrested for trafficking methamphetamine and several counts of forgery and possession of a
Were you
forged
with
instrument.
him when you were arrested, or were
No.
you somewhere else?
I was
you
at my
leave?
trailer.
Okay.
Yeah, no, this was, my arrest came, I think it was like a week after that incident. I was at my trailer, and they had been watching me. Arab City had. They'd been watching me and trying to get me. The lead officer for the drug task force had told me several times, I'm gonna get you. I know what you're doing, And I was like, prove it, cocky little shiesty that I was. But because I wasn't from that county, and up until that point, I didn't have any prior charges.
Yeah.
So to get a warrant, because I was also staying at a trap house, but at that house when I would stay there, like I kept my door padlocked because I had drugs in there. But to the judge, he was like, I'm not going to give you a separate warrant for her room. She's not from here. She's probably just in a bad time. And if you were staying in a place like that, you would lock your room too. Yeah. And that made him mad. The drug task force officer was Scotty Joe Watson was his name. He's retired now. But he was like, he knew what was going on. So he told me it was his life goal to get me. And sure enough, he did. He sure did. Somebody had ended up calling the cops on me that day. It was somebody that I was letting stay at my trailer. She was trying to get sober. I never kept anything at my trailer, and so that's why I let her stay there. Yeah. Well, I don't know what happened, but she called the cops. Actually, I do know. 2 friends of mine had come, and they were both wanted. So she called the cops to report them being there.
Okay.
And when they showed up, they surrounded my house. It was like 12 officers, 12 cars, and they just completely surrounded the trailer, guns drawn.
So in that moment, were you scared?
In that moment, I was a little terrified, but not really. I didn't show that I was scared, because if I'm being honest, I forgot that I had anything on me because I normally didn't bring anything to that trailer. But I did. I had an ounce of meth in the truck that I was driving, in my makeup bag. And that's how he got me. Because he come to the door, and he was like, where's such and such and such and such, the wanted people. Yeah. And I was like, they're in there hiding in the closet. You can go get them. I'm not keeping them from you. Yeah. And so then he was like, well, I'm going to search your house. I was like, go ahead, and he did. And he didn't find anything. And he was mad about it. And then he was like, well, what vehicle are you here in? And I was like, my friend's truck right there. So he goes over there and rummages through it. I didn't have my ID or nothing in there, so I was like, you ain't gonna, Well, then he pulls out the makeup bag, and he goes, whose bag is this? And I was like, that's mine. And he unzipped, and he was like, so this is yours too? And I was like, dang it. Dang it. So I got arrested. I didn't have a bond, obviously. And this was big girl stuff. This is like a Class A felony, trafficking methamphetamine.
Now, what year was this?
This was 2017, okay. May 25th of 2017. My mother's 50th birthday is when I went to jail. Horrible. I was in Marshall County for a year, 365 days. I was a state inmate. I had an AIS number. I was supposed to go to Tutwiler, but the way it all played out, they didn't actually sentence me until I only had 3 months left on my sentence. And so they just left me at Marshall County because they had just did a run to the prison, like a pickup from county to go to prison, and they only do those every 3 months. Mm-hmm. So by the time they were going to have another bus come up there, I would have been EOS in my sentence. So I sat at Marshall County, which I probably would have rather go to Tutwiler. Mm-hmm. Tutwiler's easier time. Oh, I got comfortable. It's easier time in Tutwiler.
When you went into prison, did you call your mom?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
But she did not answer the phone.
Oh, no.
Now, my mom has always told us, if you go to jail because you're in the wrong place at the wrong time, call me. Mm-hmm. But if you're in jail because you're being stupid, do not waste your phone call on me because I'm not answering the phone. Yeah. Well, she already knew, because she knew about me going to jail a month prior. So she knew it was nothing good. And she did not answer the phone at all. My mother did not communicate with me for the first 6 months that I was in there. And that was hard for her, I know. I know now. In the moment, I was livid.
Yeah.
You know, I was just blaming everybody but myself. Like, I can't believe she's doing me this way and keeping my child from me. Da 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 da. And it was actually one of the COs that snapped me into shape on that, because I also didn't know that my mother was calling once a week to talk to the same correctional officer to ask about me
Yeah.
and to check on me. And so she heard me in there running my mom in the ground, and she was a fiery redhead. And Miss Green, I
No.
love her to death.
Redheads aren't fiery.
Yeah. So I just remember she popped that door and she hollered me, because then my last name was Greenleaf, and she was like, Greenleaf. I was like, what did I do? You know? And she was like, get in this cube right now. And she was like, sit down. And she told me, she said, you're in here running your mama in the ground. And she's a good woman. She's taking care of your daughter, and she calls me every week to check on you. She was like, if you let me hear you say anything negative about your mama again, I will put you in confinement. And I was like, okay. Yes, ma'am.
So what was the relationship like with officers while you were in there?
It was kind of mixed matched. There was one officer, Miss Foreman. She originally did not like me. She didn't like anybody that had anything to do with meth. I think, I'm not exactly certain, but I think maybe she had some personal experiences where meth had kind of ruined some of her family, I think. And so anybody, especially somebody that was coming in there on a trafficking charge, she was like, scum of the earth,
Yeah.
you know. So immediately, because of my charges, she had kind of wrote me off. Miss Ashley she was the firm one. She didn't really play favorites, you know. She was equally law abiding to us all. And then Miss Gassaway. Miss Gassaway was probably my favorite. She's a really short, like by the book
Yeah.
CO. Most people didn't like her, but she was a woman of God. And I think she was probably the first person before the church ladies that kind of reignited the fire for the Lord in me, mostly because she saw me. She didn't see me for the drug addicted dealer. She saw me as a hurting child of God, and she showed me compassion, and you know, she talked to me about God a lot. Actually, I had started reading the Left Behind series in there, and there was only the first 3 in there. And I got real upset because I read the first 3 and I was like, I need to know, you know? And so she went and bought all of the rest of the books.
Oh, that's awesome.
And she would bring them to me one at a time to make sure that I got to read it first, and then it would stay in the block with the rest of them. So that was really awesome. And then Miss Foreman ended up loving me too, because there was, you know, people think that once you get in jail, there's no drugs in jail. Wrong. There was just as much meth in that jail
Wow.
as I was in contact with on the streets. A lot. Like all the time. And which actually, like my 3rd day in jail, I think was maybe my initial moment. A acquaintance had been sent in, okay, because of the people that I was working for.
Yeah.
They sent her in just to, like, had her get arrested, just to come in with stuff on her and to give me a phone number to call. And it was meth, it was a needle, it was weed, it was cigarette tobacco.
Oh my gosh.
It was all of this. And she was like, this is for you. Here's his number. He wants you to call him so he can take care of you. And I just remember getting this god-awful, sick feeling in the pit of my stomach. And I looked at her and I was like, look, I appreciate what you've come in here to try to do. But I think I'm going to have to leave that life behind me. So just tell them that I respectfully pass. And I don't want anything to do with this. And that's when she left my cell. I shut my cell door and I hit my knees and I prayed to God. And I was like, Lord. And at that point, I didn't even fully believe the prayers I was saying, but I was just like desperate. And I was like, I need you. If you're real, I need you to take this from me. Like, I need you to take the desire, the taste, all of it. I need it to go. And he really did. He really did. And I learned it slowly, bit by bit, because every time that meth would hit the block, it was super easy for me to be like, no, I don't want it. Now, and like I had to share a cell with multiple people. And so like the people in my cell would want to do it. Now they would try to be, you know, they're like, we're not going to do it in front of you, you know, and I was like, it's jail. I don't care. You know what I'm saying? Like, do what you want to do. I'm not going to rat you out.
Yeah.
But I don't want none of it.
What was the relationship like with the people in your cell?
It was pretty good for the most part. We there was a couple of little tiffs, you know, but we got along pretty good.
So there was 4 of you?
There was 5 of us most of the time, yeah.
Like bunk beds or?
So it was 2 bunk beds, 4 bunk beds. 4 bunk beds, and normally 1 or 2 of us on the floor on a mat. Like Marshall County was way overpopulated, still probably is, but we was packed in there like sardines. And sometimes, so like it would change. Like the people in my cell would change as people would come in and get released and things like that. So I had a couple of girls that were in my cell that were like constants because they were awaiting trial, and those are the ones that I grew the closest to over the time. And it was like a unique sisterhood. You know, we bonded over our traumatic experiences and over the crappy place that we were, and we're able to, you know, kind of lift each other up in a dark place. And
what were most of the charges of people in there? Was it mostly drugs? Was it
everything? There was people in there for murder.
Okay.
There was 2 girls in there specifically that when I got in there, they had already been in there for 3 years awaiting their trial for murder. Actually, I think there was 3 in there for murder. Not everybody would disclose what their charges were. But there was murder, there was child molestation, there was drug trafficking, there was false identity, there was, I mean, pretty much every crime that you could think of was in there at some point or another.
Did you have like a Christian community in there?
So there was these sweet little old ladies. I love them. They would come twice a week and give their time to do church with us.
Yeah.
They would get to come in, and Marshall County was kind of divided into 2, like it could be. There was like a middle door that you could divide like J side from F side. And so when they would come, they would close off J side, and anybody that didn't want to be a part of church would go over there. And those of us that did would stay on the other side, and they would bring their little Bluetooth speaker in and play worship music for us, like Lauren Daigle and stuff like that. And then they would always have like a message.
What would you say is the percentage of the population that would actually go to
It was
the
about
service?
50-50.
Okay.
It was about 50-50 originally. By the time I left, it was more like 80-20.
Oh, wow.
Which was great.
Yeah.
Those ladies are really the ones that fanned the flame in me. They came in, and I just remember thinking like, how awesome is it that these little feeble old ladies are giving their time to come in here at 6 o'clock at night in a jail full of criminals that most people are terrified of, and just share the love of Jesus and just fill us up and remind us like who we are and whose we are, and remind us that this doesn't have to be the end of our story. And so that's when I really started to dig back into the Lord. I got a Bible. I wouldn't wake up until like 2 o'clock in the afternoon. But when I did wake up, I would get my coffee and my little brownie if I had one, and I would sit on my rack and just spend time in the Word and with the Lord. And He did so many amazing things while I was in there. Like I remember sitting on my rack and reading, and He had told me the night before the ladies were there for church, and they had asked if any of us wanted to pray. And she looked at me and she was like, "You want to pray?" And I was like, I don't want to. And she was like, "Oh, come on," you know. And so I did. And afterwards she came up to me and she told me, she was like, "You're a prayer warrior." And I was like, "Nah, I don't know about that," you know. And she was like, "You are." Well, then the next day I was in my quiet time with the Lord, and like that was the first time that I remember hearing an audible voice from God. It was like He was right beside me. And He told me, He was like, "You've got to pray in here." And I was like, "What? No, like I'm praying right now."
Yeah.
And I remember Him saying like, "No, you have to pray with them." And so I stepped out of my comfort zone a little, and I started leading a prayer group every night in my cell, where I invited anybody that wanted to come. Whether, I don't care, you know, if you got something that you want prayed over or for, like, just come on, we will pray together. And so we started doing that, and miracles started happening. Like I get goosebumps talking about it.
Well, the best things happen when you step out of your comfort
Yes,
zone, right?
yes, and God will always call you to do that every stinking time. Because if you're in your comfort zone, you don't need Him.
Yeah.
So But like one of the ladies that was in there for murder, she hadn't been allowed to talk to her kids the whole 3 years she was in there. And she come in there every night praying for her babies. And then we did a Walls of Jericho walk, which is where you essentially, like, we had a box that we would put prayer requests in, and we would read a portion of the story of the Walls of Jericho. Each night we would read it, and then we would quietly march around the box. And on the seventh day, we would read the last verse of that story where the Lord said to sound the trumpets, and that's what we would do. We would walk around the box and we'd shout and scream. And that night, the seventh night, the CO came into the general pop and called her name and handed her a phone number and was like, "You need to call this number." And she called that number, and it was her mom, and her mom let her talk to her babies. And the next day, she did a video visit with her babies. And so that was a miraculous answered prayer. And that's just one of many. Like, there was a couple of girls that was in there that like they didn't think they was ever going to get out, released.
Wow.
Just all the things. Like, it was just crazy what God started to do in that jail. And like, when I first came in, okay, just to give you a little clarity, okay, when I first came in, there was this girl. I'm not gonna say her name because she might see this video, but she come up to me and decked me in the face for no reason at all, like just to assert her dominance or whatever. Like, I don't even know. Like, she just, hard. Like, it threw me for a loop for a second, and like, I didn't even know how to respond.
Yeah.
And that was not uncommon in there. Like, I didn't really have to worry about being like shivved or shanked or anything like that, But like, violence was in there, and people would do stupid crap for no reason. And that was one of the things. But then, like, you fast forward to about 7 months into my jail stay, and like, the whole atmosphere had shifted just from what we were doing with Bible studies and prayer meetings and things like that. Like, you could feel the Lord in that place. Like, it was, even the CO picked up on it. And the one that originally didn't like me, she had come in on shift because she worked night shift, and she come in on shift one night when there had been some meth on the block, and you could always tell when there was some on the block because everybody stayed ducked out. They was like ducking, and they didn't. I don't know why you would want to be high in jail when you can't do nothing, but they were. And she was like, she called me into the cube, and she told me that she owed me an apology, and that she had misjudged me, and that it was very clear to her that I'm not the person that she thought I was.
Wow.
And that's when I told her, I said, well, I'm not going to lie to you, I was. When I came in here, I was very much so that person. I would have sold meth to anybody that wanted it. I said, but God has gotten a hold of me in here. And he really just used me in ways that I never thought imaginable. Another example is the girl that called the cops. She ended up in the jail. What's ironic about this situation is that morning, in my quiet time with the Lord and in the Word, I had read the verse where it talks about, do not repay evil for evil. If your enemy is hungry, feed them. If they are naked, clothe them. All of that. And I was like, this sounds like crazy chaos, right? Well, next thing I know, Miss Foreman is coming in there, and she's asking me, she's like, do you know the girl in the holding cell? And I was like, holy crap. I was like, yeah, she's the one that called the police on me.
Yeah.
And she was like, well, she's terrified that you're going to beat her up, and she wants to go into protective custody. And I just remember hearing God say, this is what I was preparing you for this morning. And so I was like, because my flesh, I wanted to,
You
I'm not going to lie, I wanted to get her,
Yeah.
But I didn't. And I just looked at her and I told her, I said, Miss Foreman, you don't have to worry about me hurting her. I said, actually, once you shower her in, send her to my cell. I'll give her some coffee and some food, because she was tiny, and she had gotten on the needle in the time that I was in there, and she just looked like death. And she just needed somebody to show her a little bit of compassion. I don't know where she's at today. Hopefully she's sober and doing good, but I can't even remember her name right now to tell you. But I did, like, she come in there to me, and I gave her some food, and I gave her a Bible, and she started coming to the prayer meetings and stuff. And I know she got out at one point, but I think she ended up back in there. But it was just especially for me, because I've always been a little fiery turkey.
I don't see that for you.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
And aggression was, I had a lot of pent up anger that
Yeah.
I didn't really understand, but I just would react. And so God was conditioning me at that point to prepare me for the things He wanted me to do once I got out.
So how long were you in for again?
365 days.
Wow, exactly.
Exactly.
So
To
that
the
was
T.
that your sentence? Did you get out early or
No,
were you,
that was my
okay.
sentence. I was sentenced to a year.
Okay.
And then I was sentenced to do 3 years of state probation after.
Okay.
Which God again showed up and showed out for me. I was, I got out a convicted felon, and that's hard. That's to come back into society with a felony conviction is hard. You can't vote. I lost my license. Nowhere wants to hire you, especially because my charges were drug and theft charges. So it's like nobody trusts you. But I just, I got out thankfully. My mother is a lovely person, and she didn't make me go to a halfway house. She let me move back in with her and my daughter, because I told her, I was like, Jasmine's my motivation and I need to be around her.
Yeah.
So she put me through her own little rehab halfway house thing.
camp,
Like I was on lockdown, okay? No phone, no nothing. She drove me to and from my job. Like she had me
Good
on a
woman.
very tight leash.
No enabling.
No,
happening there.
no
That's
enabling at all, which is key. Is key to dealing with a loved one with addiction. She let me move in with her, and thankfully they let me transfer my state probation from Marshall County to Morgan County because my mom lived in Lacey, and because I told the judge, I was like, "Look, bro, I'm not gonna be able to be in Marshall County and stay sober because as soon as I run into somebody, I'm gonna want to get high." So he was gracious enough to grant me that, which was great. So I went through all the things. I did the color code. I did I had to do counseling. I had to do drug classes. I had to do, monthly reporting with my probation officer. I wasn't allowed to leave the state. I wasn't even allowed to leave the county without getting permission.
And that was for 3 years, right?
It was supposed to be for 3 years. At a year and a half into my probation sentence, I had completed all of my color code, passed every single test, completed all my drug classes, IEP, counseling, everything. And thanks to COVID and my husband being an essential worker, I had paid all my fines off. It was about $10,000 in fines that I had. I paid all of that off with the stimulus checks. And Judge Floyd, I love Judge Floyd. I still talk to him today. He cut me loose. He let me go off probation. He was like, "You're good. You're done. Don't make me regret it."
Yeah.
And then I found out that you could apply for a pardon, which is essentially kind of like the state giving you forgiveness for your charges, which would allow you to have your voting rights back, your gun rights back, all the things. Yeah. And so I applied for that. And when I applied, they told me, don't get discouraged, but it's probably going to be anywhere from 3 to 5 years before you get a court date. And that court date will probably be 3 to 5 years from the day that you receive the paper in the mail. So I was like, it's fine. I've waited all this time. I can wait. It's okay. It's fine.
That's a long time.
It is a long time.
Yeah.
But for your freedom, I was like, whatever. And, but God, man, I'm telling you, and it was so funny because people have asked me, how did you do that? Who did you know? Who did you call? And I was like, I called the Lord. That's who I called. Because a year after turning in my application for the pardon, I had a hearing. I drove to Montgomery. My mom went with me. I had to, it was intimidating as crap. Because they're asking you all these questions that they already know the answer to, and they just want to see if you're going to be honest. Yeah. And you basically have to plead your case for why you deserve a pardon for these charges. So I did that, and I was granted a full pardon.
Wow.
And then I found out that they had changed the law to where with certain felony charges, if you get granted a full pardon, you can then apply for and hire an attorney to try to get an expungement, which is where it's off your record to the point to where if I fill out a job application and it says, have you ever been convicted of a felony? I write no.
Okay.
I paid an attorney for that in Marshall County and was granted the expungement as well. And my only explanation for that is the good Lord above, because he knew that I had work to do for him and those charges were going to hinder me in doing that.
Yeah.
So he wiped it away. Like when he says that he will wipe your sins away like snow, like he means it. But you got to let him, you got to do the work too. But that's
So you mentioned your husband. So once you got out,
Oh, yes.
when did you meet your husband?
Well, so I knew my husband prior. He was actually a friend of Jasmine's father, and apparently had a crush on me the whole time, but never acted because he is really shy. And so when my mom finally did let me, I think like 3 months after I'd been out, she let me create a new Facebook under the circumstance that I gave her my password so that she could spy on me, which was fine. It was totally fine.
Good woman.
I think she still has my password. I have not changed it. So
Hey, accountability, right?
Yeah, it's fine. And so he was the first one that reached out to me. It was July 4th, the weekend of July 4th. Me, Mom, Dad, and Jazz were at Gulf Shores for Jasmine's first ever beach trip, and he, pops in my inbox talking about, hey, good looking.
Oh, he knew what he wanted.
Yeah, he knew. He knew it was up. So, and even that was like, I really didn't think he would stick around because my mom had what most people would think is unrealistic expectations for how that was going to go. I was not allowed to hang out with him in front of Jasmine for a while. If we hung out, he could only come. I got Jazz to bed at 8, so he was allowed to come to my mom's and pick me up at 8:15, and he had to have me back by, I think it was 10:30 or 11. So he would just come pick me up, and we would go ride around in his truck, or there was a field that we used to go to, and you could see the stars really well. And he had a big old bean bag, so he had it in the back of his truck, and so we would just go and chill in the field on the bean bag and talk and catch up.
That is such an authentic Alabama date.
I love it. I love it. Like I tell him all the time, like, babe, we need another bean bag.
Somebody needs to write a country song about the bean bag and the field.
And the stars. Yes. It would be a #1 hit, I guarantee.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, and then next thing I know, I'm falling head over heels for this man that loves my daughter unconditionally.
That's awesome.
And that's what he said, that he was like, I've always just wanted a good girl that loves Jesus with a already ready-made family to just head first jump into. And
so how long did y'all date before you got married?
We were dating for a year. So we got together, I say we got together July of 2018. And then we were married July 13th of 2019.
Okay. That's good. That's a
and
good
then
amount of
Scarlett
time.
came shortly after.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things where it's like, I'm not going to say I knew off the gate, like, because I prayed about it. And I'm not even going to lie. Jacob Chapman had told me, he's like, I don't know. I think y'all are unequally yoked. Because Cody was, it's not that he wasn't a believer. He just wasn't, like, active in following the Lord. Like, he believed there was a God, but he didn't have a relationship with him at all. And so Jacob was like, don't do it. And I didn't listen to Jacob, so I'm a little rebellious sometimes. But now he's a man that loves the Lord, and he prays with me, and he attends church, and he serves with me, and he supports all of the things that I do with, like, the Kairos prison ministry and recovery work. And me and Ed Henry are talking about some things that the Lord has dropped on him, and Cody's excited about it.
So let's go into the prison ministry real quick. So at what point did you get involved with that?
So it was way later than I thought. So, like, when I was in jail, the Lord told me that he wanted me to be back in the jail.
Yeah.
And at first I was like, what? No, I'm not going back to jail. But his ministry work, he wanted me, because the little ladies, they inspired me. And so, like, I wanted to be those little church ladies.
That's where you met him, and he wanted you to go back and help other people get there.
Yeah. Because I do have a unique viewpoint that a lot of people don't have, and that's the been there, done that standpoint on the whole matter. So I knew then that, like, I was going to do it. But I got out and, got married and had a baby and had Jasmine and work and all the things. And so I never really at first did anything with that until about 3 years ago. A friend of mine that I was in Marshall County with had gotten involved in Kairos, and she had served on her first weekend. And afterwards, she made a whole Facebook post with pictures and talking about it and all the things. And, like, as soon as I read that, I messaged her. I was like, how do I do this? How do I get involved with this? This is what I'm supposed to be doing.
Explain a little bit more about.
So Kairos is an international prison ministry where we take a group of volunteers that we do monthly meetings to train and prepare, because there's a very strict, we call it riverbank, but it's like guidelines of what we can and can't do and say and things like that. But essentially we go in there into the prisons, and there's female teams and male teams. For all the, like I said, it's international. It's all over the world. We go in there for a 4-day weekend where we're actually in the prison with them, and we're giving them the tools to come to know Jesus, to know, what he wants for them in their life, what he has for them. And we give them the tools to kind of do their own ministry work within the prison after we leave. Basically, if anybody's ever been through Freedom at Daystar, it's like Freedom in 4 days.
Okay.
Is pretty much what it is. And it's such a blessing because these ladies, they come in on that, because we go in, we start on a Thursday, and we're there Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And these ladies come in on Thursday and they're just broken.
Yeah.
Like you can just almost see the literal storm clouds above them. They're just shattered and lost and hungry for love.
Well, and that's the difference about you. You know what that's like.
Yeah.
So you can sympathize.
Yeah. So, and then just like day by day, with each little bit that we pour into them, you slowly watch the light come back into their eyes. And they're totally different people by the end of that 4 days than they were when we met them on Thursday. And it's just a beautiful blessing, because you think that you're going in to bless them, but normally you end up being blessed way more than they ever got. At least it feels that way.
So where did the funds come from? Do people donate?
People donate.
Okay.
It's strictly donation, solidly donation. So we, because like we have like meal tickets that we can sell, because it's $10 generally. $10 covers one meal for one participant, and we normally feed them 8 meals over the period of the weekend. And so we tell people, if you want to buy a meal ticket, we have these little cards that will write your first name and the city you're from on. And every meal that we serve to them, each participant has a meal ticket beside their plate, so that they can put a name to the person, to the plate, so that they can know that somebody actually cares.
And can anybody volunteer?
Anybody can volunteer. Now, not anybody gets approved to go in. That's what's hard for me right now. Because my first year I did Aliceville, the federal facility, and they let me in, no problem. No problem at all. It was great. The last 2 years, we're actually about to go in to Tutwiler on September 25th.
Okay.
Denied. They will not let me in Tutwiler. I don't know why. If you don't get approved to go on the inside, you're on what we call the outside team, which is we're at the church and we're the ones cooking the food. We cook the food. We get what we call agape, which is like pictures and posters and prayer chains and things like that. It's like a tangible expression of the love of God that we take for these ladies to see. And it's amazing, because we have a prayer vigil that we get people to volunteer to sign up to pray on, like in 30-minute intervals for the entire time that we're in there. And so if you sign up to pray on one of those slots, we will take your name and put it on a strip of construction paper and fold it into a chain of links. And then we link all of the volunteers' prayer chains together to make one massive prayer chain. And when we bring that prayer chain in and they see like tangible evidence of these people that are praying for them, it just melts them in their seat, because they just, they're blown away by the fact that there's somebody on the outside that doesn't even know them, that loves them enough to sit down and take time out of their day to pray for their walk and their journey and their safety and all the things. It's just an unexplainable feeling. Like if you haven't tried Kairos, try Kairos. And
I will post a link to the website when I
yeah.
share this video, so people can access that if they want to.
And for those that don't want to go in, one, you don't have to go in, and two, you can always donate. That's a good way to, be a part of something bigger than yourself without having to do the scary part, because it is a little scary. There are,
So I want to take a left turn real quick. So every episode, we ask for a burnt toast moment. So is there something crazy that has happened to you recently that you could possibly share, that you learned something from, or like something that stands out that's a part of your story? I mean, your whole story is kind of burnt toast. Anyway,
it's pretty burnt.
But recently, is there anything that's happened to you that you could speak to?
So, I mentioned at the beginning that I was sexually assaulted for several years in my life, and that in and of itself was a burnt toast moment. But I've always kind of fought with that. Like, why did I have to go through that?
Yeah.
And unfortunately, now I know the answer. I'm having to walk my daughter through something very, very similar. So that's the moment. Like, that was a moment that tried to kill me, but God. And now that I am a 33-year-old grown adult that has a relationship with the Lord and knows how to kind of walk through that trauma and unpack that trauma in a healthy way, it's much easier. I'm not going to say easier, but I feel more equipped.
You're prepared
to help prepare her for the battles ahead. And because of the way that things weren't necessarily handled right with me, I know that I'm handling this the right way. And that no matter what, God is going to see both of us through this, just like he saw me through all of the guns being held to my head, all of the needles in my arm, all of the other burnt toast moments of my story. So I would say embrace the bad, because while God never intends for us to be in pain, he will most certainly use that pain for something good and bring beauty from the ashes.
And you get a glimpse of kind of what your mom, I guess, went through as well, because seeing our children go through these things, I mean, you feel it too.
Yeah.
I mean,
real hard.
when you're
like, I'd rather it be me.
Yeah. Well, so and thank you for sharing that. Like, I just, I know you're being very vulnerable, but it can just help so many people. You have a really great story to share, and I'm glad you're sharing it.
Thanks.
Is there a scripture, you shared a little bit, but is there some specific scripture that helped you along your path that you kind of went back to every time?
My life verse is Jeremiah 29:11, which is, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you a hope and a future." That's what I clung to, because when you're sitting in a jail cell and you're facing charges, also there was a small part of my jail time that they were trying to hit me with murder, because they said that the product that I had had a cutting agent in it that was killing people, which it didn't, thank God. But had it, it could have very easily played out that I was in prison for murder for life, and God protected me from that. But that verse is what got me through, was even though it looks dark right now, God has a plan for me. Plans for me to be happy and prosperous and healthy and not in jail and not on drugs and not depressed and, all the things. And so that's the promise that I kind of stood on and still do. Anytime darkness tries to prevail in my life, I just remind myself and the darkness that you can't touch me. I'm a child of God, and he's got plans for me since he knitted me in my mom's womb. He knows what he wants me to do, and he's going to make sure that I do it. And but you have to be willing, to do it. I think coupled with that, I saved it, because a lot of people know Jeremiah 29:11, but they don't normally know the verse after, which is, "Then you will call on me and come and pray to me, and I will listen to you." It's like, in order for God to allow his plans of prosperity and health and happiness to be in your life, you have to have that relationship with him. You have to be willing to call on him and to listen to him when he tells you what to do. Yeah, obedience is key.
Yeah.
It's key, and it's not easy. I'm not perfect. I still mess up,
As a fiery redhead, obedience is very hard.
Yes.
But you are walking through that. So you were talking about some future plans that you have a little bit earlier, and I kind of cut you off. So go into the bill that you had recently tried to have passed.
So it was like 4 months after I got my expungement, right? Like, I had my record clean, completely clean. And it was 10:30 at night, and there was a knock at the door, and it was Somerville City, and they were taking me to jail on a warrant from 2013, which was prior to my felony charges.
Blows my mind that it was so far back.
It's ridiculous, because really, okay, if I was evading the police from 2013 to 2016, at the very least, when I got arrested in Marshall County, there should have been a hold.
Yeah.
Like, Morgan County should have been like, nope, we want her. Not Madison, but Somerville was who it was. And it was for a misdemeanor verbal harassment charge with somebody that I am best friends with now. Her name is Kayla. And we were best friends all through high school, but then through my addiction, we had butted heads, and I don't even me and her neither one really remember the day of the incident. Now, when she was handed the warrant, she was like, "Well, this is my handwriting," and apparently it happened. She was like, "But I don't remember this going down," and it was like. I had argued with her in the parking lot of the Dollar General or something, like something
Why
so
should that even be brought up?
Right, exactly. And also, again, if your department was doing their job at the time that warrant was filed, I should have done been got. Because I was pulled over prior to my felony charges. I was pulled over a couple times, never had a warrant, never had nothing. When I went to Marshall County, never had a hold, never had a warrant. When I did my pardon, they do an extensive background check. Nothing. When I did my expungement, nothing. When I did my background check for the Aliceville Kairos, nothing. Nothing. And then all of a sudden, Miss Curbow, you gotta go with us to jail. I was like, no, you got the wrong person. I was like, dude, I've not done nothing wrong in 7 years. At that point, I was like, I've been a good kid. He was like, I'm sorry, this is a warrant from 2013. I was like, you gotta be kidding me, bro. You gotta be kidding me. So, naturally, my mugshot was all over freaking Facebook before the next morning. I also had to be, I know, sometimes it's great, but sometimes it's not so much. I was supposed to be in Montgomery that next morning at 8 o'clock for a Kairos meeting. I was in that holding cell until 4 o'clock in the morning. I come home, took a shower, and drove straight to Montgomery, no sleep. So obviously I noticed that my mugshot was on Facebook, and I looked. Somebody could have said that maybe I'd relapsed because I was pissed. Okay, I was livid, and you could tell. And so I made a short Facebook Live to let all of my friends and family and my haters know that look, I didn't mess up. This is something way stupid old. I'm okay. And Ed Henry saw my live feed, and he called me and got the lowdown on what was going on, and he was like, this is ridiculous. So he very quickly became my advocate. He came to court with me. Like, he did everything he could to make all this kind of go away. Which the charge got dismissed. I didn't get charged, but the arrest is now still on my record, and there's nothing I can do about that because they took me to jail. They had to. Now, the officers were super nice. They didn't cuff me. Like, they were good.
Yeah.
The corporal at the jail, not so much, but we won't get on that subject. So then me and Ed devised a plan to come up with a bill to try to push through Parliament to do something to prevent this.
Happen.
So it wouldn't happen again, because just like in my situation, there's so many people that have done reform and worked and put in the effort and really changed their life, and something like this could tank them.
Yes, yeah.
Because while I was sitting in that holding cell, the only thing I could think of was getting high. That's it. That's all I wanted to do. Even as deeply rooted in God as I am, that's all I wanted to do. I was like, why try? Why even try? I just did all of that to erase my past, and now here it is again. Fresh in my face.
You never said there wouldn't be trials, right?
Right.
When you're living for the Lord, things can happen.
But He's in the fire with you.
Yeah.
So, and He definitely was. I did not relapse. I did not, because I have a great support system around me. Really, if it had been anybody other than my husband that picked me up, I probably would have went to Marshall County and relapsed. But he was like, we're not being stupid. I was like, okay, fine.
And that's something we have talked about a lot too, is how important it is to pick the right people to surround yourself with, because that can make all the difference.
All the difference. Because who you're around, you will become. Whether you want to be or not, subconsciously, it's going to happen.
Yeah.
So if you hang out with losers and drug abusers and, people that lie and steal and cheat, and they rub off on you, and before you know it, you're doing the same mess. But the opposite, if you hang out with people that are godly and that are spirit-filled and that are going to call you on your crap, and be like, hey, the Lord would not be happy about that. Like, they'll hold you accountable, and you are less likely to go back to that way. That's why it's vital to change your playground.
So what happened with this bill that y'all tried to pass?
So it didn't pass this year, but we're going to go back next year and we're going to try it, because essentially what it would do is somewhat create a statute of limitations for low-level misdemeanor warrants to where, like, once they hit a certain amount of years of being in the system without being served or dealt with, then they have to go back and reevaluate them and call the parties involved and determine if it's something that even still needs to be pursued.
Yeah.
It would also require them to do a yearly purge of their records to search for unserved warrants because hopefully next year we will take it and it'll pass. It almost passed this year. It was just too new. People didn't know enough about it to be confident in it enough to vote for it. So we will spend this next year kind of lobbying for it and putting it out there and making sure people know what it's for.
I mean, to me, it's a no-brainer.
I feel like it is too, but
common
politics is
sense.
politics. And I'm not trying to be a politician. I'm just trying to help people, like
Yeah.
I'm just trying to be real and honest. Like
Yeah. Well,
that
you're
was
trying to make a
bogus
difference.
and it shouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
And it very well could mean somebody's life,
Well, it
because
could totally mess somebody up that's totally
Right.
recovered for
that's what I'm
something
saying.
like
Like
that
if I
happening.
didn't have the support system and the relationship with the Lord that I do, I would have relapsed. And I think it's like, I could be wrong on this number, but I think it's like in the upwards of 80% of people that relapse overdose and die because they end up using the same amount that they were using before, but now their tolerance is down and their body can't handle it. And so it very well could be life or death for people. And a lot of people don't think like that because a lot of people have a really bad like stigma on addicts, and they just think, oh, they're just worthless people that chose this life. And that's not the case. Like I'm not going to say that addiction is a disease, but it is a condition.
Yeah.
And to me, I think it's a demonic spirit that gets on people, that controls them and takes their ability to control themselves away.
Well, and like you said, it's tied to a lot of other things
It
that
is.
have been shoved down for years.
Yes,
so.
because it's normally an escape. Most people don't just be like, oh, I'm going to grow up and be a meth head, or oh, I'm going to be a crackhead, or, whatever. But they go through something that is so hurtful that they just want to get away from it for even just a minute. And drugs, unfortunately, is something that will take you away from it. When I was high, I didn't think about my trauma because I was doing tweaker stuff, So that's just the way it is. And so that's what I'm trying to do now is I'm trying to love on everybody that I can. I'm trying to give back to the jail and prison community to show them that there is hope. And I'm trying to help as many addicts as I can to find freedom. And the key to that is to find God. Like God is I've tried to get sober so many times it was like 10 years that I was an addict. And every single time failed until I put God in the center. When I gave God control of my addiction and my urges, that's when I got it right. And it's not that they don't still come. They still come. Just 2 days ago, I wanted to get high. The thoughts are always in your head because the spiritual realm is very real.
Oh, yes.
And the attacks will always come, especially when you're trying to do the work of the Lord.
Yeah.
Satan don't like that. And he's going to throw everything he can at you to take you back to the place that God saved you from. And that's where you have to decide to allow the voice of God, the voice of God to be louder than those other voices.
Put on that armor.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
for
prepare
sure.
for battle.
For sure. And a support system is key.
What encouragement would you give to someone like your mom, a family member out there watching a loved one spiral? What can they do for them?
My first piece of advice would be pray. I'm alive today because my mother prayed for me when I was not praying for myself. Intercessory prayer is vital to all walks of life, but especially somebody in addiction. They're lost and they're normally not searching for the Lord. But your prayers can be what stands in the gap to get them a bridge to be able to get there. So my first advice would be to pray. And my second advice would be to not enable them. And that's going to be hard. And there's a lot of times that people enable others and they don't realize that that's what they're doing. But it would look like, for example, in my addiction, at first, if I called my mom and was like, I need diapers for Jazz, she would just cash at me some money.
Yeah.
Well, I was a liar. I did not need diapers for my daughter. I wanted dope. So I would take that money and go get my fix. She quickly caught on to that. And so then if I called her and was like, hey, I need this and this for Jazz, she would go buy what I needed and bring it to me. And so definitely doing everything you can to not enable them. And sometimes tough love is required. Just like when my mom called the cops on me. I know she didn't want to do that. She didn't want to call the cops. She didn't want me to go to jail, especially not on Christmas. But she did what she had to do to save my life and to save my daughter's life, especially when there's kids involved. You have to put the kids first. You have to. No matter what that looks like, no matter what that means, the person on the other end of it is probably going to hate you at first. They're going to take it the wrong way and they're going to push back. But eventually they'll see the other side and they'll respect you a lot more for it. Like, my mother is one of the strongest people I know.
Yeah, and then you'll be sitting on the front row at church with your mom every Sunday.
Yeah,
right?
every Sunday.
Y'all have a great relationship
Yeah,
now.
we really do. We really do. Which we always kind of had a good relationship, but addiction clouded that up pretty bad.
Yeah.
But now, she's my best friend.
Yeah, the Lord has brought y'all to a different place.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so awesome to see. For those who feel their past disqualifies them, what do you want them to know?
I want them to know that God does not call the qualified, He qualifies the called.
That's good.
Your past does not define you.
Mm-hmm.
It does not define you any more than the prisoner on the cross beside Jesus that was a criminal his whole life and still made it to heaven because he believed. I think I saved a verse for this. It's Isaiah chapter 1, verses 18 through 20. It says, "Though your sins are like scarlet, they shall be as white as snow. Though they are red as crimson, they shall be like wool. If you are willing and obedient, you will eat the good things of the land. But if you resist and rebel, you will be devoured by the sword, for the mouth of the Lord has spoken." And that sums it up. God promises to wash all of our transgressions away. And so when you come to Jesus and you really give Him that control and ask for that forgiveness and turn away from the sins that you're committing, He cleanses you completely. And at that point, you're a new creation.
Yeah.
And the past doesn't matter. You don't live there anymore.
Yeah.
Look forward, look to God, and you'll get there. That's my advice.
So good. Clarissa, I want to thank you so much for, like I said, being open and vulnerable with your story. I appreciate you being here. What I love most is that your life reminds us that God doesn't waste anything.
Nothing.
Not the brokenness, not the shame, and not the burnt toast moments. To anyone listening, maybe you feel like you've gone too far or that your mistakes define you. But as Clarissa shared today, God is the God of second chances, third chances, or even fourth chances. If He can take her from rock bottom to solid ground, He can do the same for you. Mm-hmm. This has been the Beauty and Burnt Toast. Until next time, remember, even the parts of your story that feel burnt beyond recognition can still become something beautiful in the hands of God. I'm kidding. Okay. Thank you so much, guys, for joining us. It's been great. Please follow along for more stories. We might have to get Clarissa's mom on here to give us a piece of advice.
She would probably do it.
We'll see you next time. Bye, guys.